Hi guys, welcome to the episode 2 of the step-by-step series. In this video, I am going to be talking about the different workspaces and we'll be taking a closer look at how these workspaces can be utilized for some effective working inside of Adobe's Animate CC. Alright, so let's jump right in. So further to the episode 1, in this episode, I'm going to be switching the document size from standard to full HD, and there's a reason why I'm doing it. You'll see this in a bit. So I'm just going to zoom out using the shortcut command minus sign on your keyboard, or you can use the control key on Windows. Now the main reason why I've switched the document size here is because I want to be able to animate the thumbnail design that I had created for my first video. All right, and that's a design that I've created inside Adobe Illustrator, but I just want to start off with something here so that we don't have to look at this blank workspace or blank stage here. All right, so I'm just going to start off by showing you how to import an Adobe Illustrator document. So already I have my design ready. So I'm just going to head to File and go to Import and come down to this option which says Import to Stage. Shortcut is Command R on a Mac and Control R on a PC. So if I just click on this, you can choose where the file is. So I have my file right here which says thumbnail.ai. That's the standard Illustrator format. So I'm just going to open that, and I will be presented with a dialog box here which says import thumbnail.ai, the file name, to stage. All right, now let's look at the options that we have here for a second. So it says select all layers. Now you may or may not want to select all the layers which are there in the document. So let's just twirl this off and let's see what layers do I have. I think there's something missing here. So because I had some different layers. This might happen if you have probably not saved your changes. So I'm just going to cancel this out. I'm just going to head back to Adobe Illustrator. That's my thumbnail, and you can see that these are my layers, right? So there's a BG, which is basically the short, the abbreviation for background. That's my Animate logo, that's my Motion Tuition logo, and that's all the text right there. Okay, so these are the layers. I think I did not save it, so I'm just going to save this and I'm going to say Control S or File Save. So now since this is saved, I am just going to head back to Animate and repeat the same steps. Import to stage, and then import it. So this time though, I am definitely getting my layers back in the same order that they were in. Okay, now I know that I don't want this layer to be present in my document, but if you want something to be present, you can just switch on or switch off. This is a toggle that you can do. Rest, the next option, it says convert layers to single animate layer or animate layers or keyframes. I'll just keep it to default for now. Next, it says place objects at original position. Definitely yes, I would want that. And I'll say import. And I can definitely see some problems right away. There is some offsetting happening. Now this offsetting can happen a lot of times because when you're basically round tripping between two softwares, things might look a little different uh, in one of the softwares. So what you can do is you can essentially go manually and just double click on it and then go back into it and then do some adjustments, or maybe let's see, I think we can just reposition this. a little bit, something like that. Something like that looks acceptable to me. Maybe I'm just using Shift and Alt here to constrain the transformation to this point. Okay. And then bring this down a little bit. All right. So that's looking pretty good to me for now. Rest, I think everything looks fine to me. Now, we have this in place. Now, it would have been better if I would have got all of these elements in their own separate layers, just like in Illustrator, we had everything on separate layers. But then, since we have to animate this, this is going to be a different scenario. So ultimately, we are going to separate each element out on its own layer. So it's quite okay to bring everything onto one single layer, right? And that is why, if you remember, I had chosen when I had selected import to stage. I'll show this to you once again. That was the reason why I had chosen single animate layer, right? Now, if I had chosen animate layers, then every layer would have been on its own separate layer here inside of Adobe Animate. Okay, so that's the basic difference. Now let's look at the different types of workspaces that we have here and how they can be utilized to work in a better way. All right, so if I just come here, I have the first workspace, which is called the animator workspace. And if I switch to animator workspace, I would have a lot of controls here on the left side. The interface changes quite a lot. The tools have been shifted here on top. The color swatches and the color section is here available to us. Then we have the align section available. We have some motion presets. We have some default presets available also. So that's there. Then on the right, we have properties. So anything that you select here would have some kind of properties attached to it. So this is basically an image, and that's why it's showing that it's an instance of a particular file right there. Okay, so as and how you select different elements, this is going to change. All right, so like I just selected this background and it just changed to something else. All right, so that's how the properties panel is arranged. Okay, then you have the library panel available here, which is quite helpful because this is where you are going to be storing most of your assets. Okay, so this is the animator workspace. Although personally speaking, I don't use this workspace because this, for my taste, this looks a little bit too cluttered. So what I would essentially do is I would keep things to the bare minimum. All right, so that's just a personal preference that you may choose to be with. Then you have another workspace here called Classic, and this is for the people who are used to the older version of Animate, which was called Flash, because that used to have this kind of a workspace, and some people, including myself, uh, feel right at home with this layout. All right, so most of the tools that we use are here. Properties is on the right section, right side. We have the timeline on the top, and that's it. Right, nothing too much going on here. Then we have the debug workspace, which is mostly for programmers and coders. So I am not into it too much. I don't know how to work with ActionScript 3.0. I'm basically an animator, so I don't use that part a lot. Then you have the designer workspace. Again, different set of tools available for designing purposes. If you are designing something inside Adobe Flash or Adobe Animate, then this is probably the workspace that you might prefer. Then you have the developer workspace, again for ActionScript 3.0 side of things. Essentials workspace is also there, right? And there's a small screen workspace also, which is quite interesting because it also basically stacks up only the bare minimum functions in its workspace. Okay, now I can move this toolbar, drag it to the right a little bit, and what I am going to get is basically an array of tools which are there to that associated workspace. So these are the only tools associated with the small screen workspace, and so on and so forth. Now there is another option to save your customized workspaces inside Adobe Animate, and that's just basically a nice way to essentially customize the way you want to work inside Adobe Animate. And this is how it goes. So if I just go ahead and line up my panels according to how I want them to appear, let's say I want the side panel to be visible just a little bit so that I get a little hang of what things are like. I don't want motion presets here, so I can just get rid of that. I don't want CC libraries. Info is something that I don't want. Then these things are just fine to be there. I would need them. Then probably I can just minimize this to its bare minimum. Timeline is something that you may want to keep at the bottom or at the top, depends on your individual choice. And then let's say I want to have the timeline to be showing me at least 2 layers minimum. So that's the kind of vertical spacing. Then let's say if I want the zoom ratio to be somewhere about there, let's say about 1 second to be in view, maybe 2 second also, depends on your choice. So I'm looking at this 1 second mark and the 2 second mark. So let's assume that this is the workspace that you want to go with, and I want this to be showing up completely by say about 50% or maybe 25%, maybe 40%. Okay, so this is good enough, I guess, and this is the configuration that I like. Okay, let's assume that I want to work with this kind of workspace. So I can easily go ahead and save my workspace by just coming here, and so this says new workspace, so I'm going to call it something like minimal. I'll give it some name, and then I can say save workspace. So this gets saved, all right, and this will show up here. So now let's say if I go back to my classic workspace and then I want to come back to my initial minimal workspace, so that is there for me to work with. I have animator and then minimal Nick. All right, so that's basically how you can go ahead customizing your workspace. Now in the next session I am going to be talking you through different things related to doing some basic animation, and I'll be specifically focusing on the hotkeys, which are going to be very useful when you start to animate. All right, these are going to be some of the basic concepts, okay, that you need to know. So see you in the next session.